Welcome, everybody. The Nick Saban Show on the air for this Thursday, September the 9th, presented by Alpha Insurance. Glad to have you with us here at Baumhauer's Victory Grill. Jordan Rogers with us from the SEC Network. Coach Nick Saban getting himself situated, and he'll be joining us in just a moment. Jordan, great to have you in town this weekend.
Great to be here. I don't think I've ever sat this close to Nick here.
Oh, that's no big deal.
Oh, it's a treat. It's a treat.
I can tell you that. You've been in better places than this.
Tell you what, I can't hear you from practice earlier. I was talking about the noise. Woo!
Oh,
Not in shape for that anymore.
Well, we made a lot of mental mistakes today, so that kind of added to the sore throat.
I'm going to make mental mistakes after not being able to hear myself for a couple days.
Yeah. Well, you know, we only used to do that when we played on the road, you know, for the offense. And then we found that we were making so many mental mistakes on defense when we played at home because the fans all cheer when the offense has the ball for the other team, and the defensive players can't hear the calls and signals, and so we had to work on hand signals and communication so that it forces us to do it on Thursday even when we play at home.
Yeah. Has this been a tough week? I mean, I hearken back to Georgia Southern. I hearken back to the game against the Citadel with those funky offenses of theirs, and it's not unlike what Mercer runs. How's the week been preparing for a different style of offense?
Well, you know, I think first of all, you always look at your team, and this was obviously a great win for us against a good team at Miami. I think the players, you know, really came out ready to play. We had great energy, great intensity. You know, started off the game, executed really well. But, you know, once we got ahead 27-0, all right, we showed signs of losing, you know, our intensity. You know, right before the half, we fumbled the ball. Then we dropped the pass on the next down. Then we had to punt, give them back the ball. Then they had their best drive of the half to go down and kick a field goal right before the half. So from 27-0, the score was 17-13 for the rest of the game. And we stopped them twice, once on the 1-yard line and once on the 5-yard line. So they only got once no score and once a field goal. So, you know, we ran the ball for over 5 yards a carry in the first half, 1 yard a carry in the second half. They were 1 for like 7 or something on third down in the first half, and they were 5 for 7 on third down in the second half. So my whole point here is I'm not trying to criticize our team or anything like that, but, you know, there's 3 I's that I always talk about with the players. You have to have immediacy, which means you have a sense of urgency to do something right now. But you have to have mental intensity. And you got to be able to maintain and sustain mental intensity because it's the only way you can play with any intelligence. So those 3 things, immediacy, intensity, intelligence, are really important to competing at a high level and playing and performing at a high level. So when you kind of lose your intensity, you become pretty ordinary pretty quick. And I think what usually affects that? External circumstances. So what am I talking about here? What affected our intensity in this game? The scoreboard. We got ahead 27-0. All right, and then we don't play the same because, it's a relief syndrome. You know, we're ahead in the game. We don't have to play as hard. We don't have to finish plays. We don't have to focus. We don't have to pay attention to detail. But that can't be a part of your psyche because when it is, you know, that means any external factor could determine how you play. Like if you're not playing a good team, then does that determine how you play? If it's hot outside, that's another external factor. Does that mean you don't practice good and develop the right kind of habits? So all these things to me are something that our team needs to prove that they can do, because you really want to dominate the opponent for 60 minutes in the game by maintaining your intensity. And if you look at that game, we weren't dictating the game to Miami in the second half. They were dictating it to us. We were only making 1 yard a carry. All right, so there's a lot more for us to really do as a team and prove as a team. And, you know, I've been on everybody's tail end pretty good this week. So, you know, success is really kind of a simple thing. If you do more, if you practice better, if you do more preparing, if you do more study, if you do more of being positive in terms of what you're doing to try to do, you probably have a chance to be more successful. If you do less studying, less preparing, less practicing quality habits, then you're probably going to be less successful. So it's pretty simple. But the thing about it is, it's kind of inevitable that us human beings, we're always looking for an easy way. We're always looking to be relieved because we did well, so now we don't have to continue to do well. But that's not really how you win a championship. So to me, we got a lot to prove. And, a lot of this comes from you got to respect winning. Mm-hmm. If you lose respect for winning, and you lose respect for winning, when you forget what it's like to lose. I remember, and we've been through this before now. We've lost games that we should have never lost around here, because of what I'm talking about right now. We won 19 games in a row from 2009 2010, right? Mm-hmm. We won 14 games, then we won 5-0. We went to South Carolina. You talk about getting beat like a drum.
Garcia had the great day.
We got the lining kicked out of our britches.
Yeah.
And had a really good team. And maybe a better team than we had the year before. But it was all because of the same thing. We couldn't maintain intensity. Everybody was looking for an easy way. Won 19 games in a row. Everybody forgot what it was like to lose. And then that's what happened. So this team is either going to be above that and be able to get it right without that happening, or we're going to have to learn our lessons the hard way if we don't learn how to maintain intensity for 60 minutes in a game, especially when you play a good team.
Yeah.
I hate to keep talking, but I've been harping on all this stuff all week. But when I was 27 years old, coaching at Ohio State.
A few years ago.
Yeah.
Just a couple.
A long time ago. And Woody Hayes wasn't the coach. I was coaching for Earl Bruce. But Woody Hayes, all of his players would come back and tell stories about how they would practice. And he'd say, the second game of the year, and he'd even tell us, when we were playing games, he would say, you're practicing today to beat Michigan. Well, it'd be the second game of the season, and we'd be playing, Illinois or somebody. And I was always taught, play the next play, next game is the most important game, and
Sure.
all that. And, his whole theory and he'd tell the players, if you're good enough to beat Michigan, you'll beat these guys this week. So you need to be practicing for that. But now I understand what he was talking about. All right, so it's not about playing this game or this team, and no disrespect to them or their program or their coach, because they're very well coached and they play hard and they're a good little team. But if you're good enough to beat the best teams and you have the right mindset to do it, you should be able to have success, throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And what made me a believer was we played Northwestern the week before we played Michigan. We never practiced one play all week for Northwestern. We practiced all week for Michigan.
Really?
That's when they had Anthony Carter and Butch Woolfolk, and
Sure.
They were number one in the nation. We beat Northwestern 63-0, and then we beat Michigan the next week too, at Michigan. So my theory of taking one game at a time, one play at a time, which I always preach to the players, is not necessarily right, because you should really be challenging yourself to be the best player you can be. So when you get the opportunity to play the best team you're going to play, you're going to have created the right habits to do that.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm not talking the rest of the time.
No, you are. Your name's on the show. You got to talk. But Jordan, when you were the quarterback at Vandy, when you were the captain at Vanderbilt, that leadership element, it doesn't matter record necessarily. You had to be the leader, weren't you?
Yeah, that's what. And you kept talking about maintaining intensity and respecting. When I kept thinking, there's a lot of kids on the team that all they've done is won so far. So that respect needs to be driven, I think, sometimes within the boat, not told what direction to go. And so I just kept thinking leadership, right? So as a leader, as a quarterback, we're a little different boat. We were in the programs we were at, respecting and winning. We were just hoping to win. But where's the leadership at in the team right now? Because you had some significant players and leaders leave.
Right.
That's something that's going to continue to develop. And when I think third quarter of a game that you're winning handily, those leaders are the ones that are policing the sidelines, going, no, our focus needs to be here. This drive is just as important as, the 35 points we already have on the board.
Right. It's interesting that you bring that up because I actually had a leadership meeting today, and I said to the guys, and I think to your point, when the coach keeps harping on something, the more he harps on it, the more meaningless it becomes. And that's what I told the leadership group today. I said, so I'm telling you guys, if you don't start taking the bull by the horns relative to what I'm talking about, we're going to have a tough time getting where we want to go and a tough time being the kind of team that we can be. So to your point, it's exactly right. Like last year, we had fantastic leadership on our team. I had the easiest job in America, last year. Because of the guys that we had, the kind of leadership that we had, and how they had the respect of the other players and how they impacted and affected, what we did on a daily basis. And they were driven. They had something they wanted to prove. There was a great sense of purpose in terms of what they wanted to accomplish. So it was really pretty easy. But, this year, I think because we've won, and it's been this way every year after winning the championship. Because of that same thing. How do you maintain this sort of hunger that you need to have to really sustain what we're talking about?
Is leadership something that you can coach and teach someone how to develop, or do you just have to create the environment and let the cream rise to the top?
Well, I think that, we try to teach guys how to impact and affect other people. First of all, it's by the example that you set. You can't be a leader if you're not willing to do the right things relative to the entire program and organization. I don't care if it's on the field, off the field, whatever. So the first thing is you got to set a good example. You got to be somebody that somebody else wants to emulate. And then you got to care enough about other people to take the time to try to impact them and show them the way. And that happens more one-on-one than it does getting up and giving a speech in front of the whole team, because it doesn't work as well as a group as it does individually and quietly. So those two things are probably most important, because you got to be willing to serve somebody else to be able to do that. And, that's not necessarily human nature either. So you can kind of show guys, but I think there's some guys that are just naturally impactful. They're natural leaders. They kind of get it. They've got the personality type. They're outgoing, and they're driven themselves. So they are willing to do all the right things. So they are setting a good example, and they are willing to help other people.
That's Coach Nick Saban with our special media guest, Jordan Rogers from the SEC Network. We're coming right back in just a moment. This segment of the Nick Saban Show is presented by Royal Furniture. Family owned and operated for 75 years, Royal Furniture has locations in Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Memphis, and Jackson, Tennessee for your shopping convenience. Or if you'd like, you can shop online at royalfurniture.com. Royal Furniture, proud sponsors of the Booth Cam for all Bama games this season. Welcome back, everybody. Hey, Coach, and the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. Protect your cars, home, life, and business with Alpha. Get a quote or find a local agent at alphainsurance.com. Hey, Coach, how about Bryce Young, the Davey O'Brien National Quarterback of the Week, SEC Offensive Player of the Week, Will Reichard, the Special Teams Player of the Week? Man, it's nice to have those kind of tools at your disposal, huh?
Well, it's great to see the players get, a little positive recognition for all their hard work and preparation that they've done. And, Bryce played really well in the game, especially for his first start. I do think the confidence that he gains will sort of impact the other players, on the team. And probably his leadership will be more impactful as well. So we're excited about that. And Will Reichard just continues to amaze with his ability to continue to kick so well.
Yeah, 51-yarder the other day, that 52-yarder last year against Georgia. Why don't we go to the phones, gentlemen? Our first phone call of the night brought to us, as always, by Alabama 811. Always contact 811 before you dig to know what's below. Call 811 or visit al811.com. Pee-wee opening us up from Grand Bay, Alabama. Pee-wee, your offensive line did pretty well this weekend.
Yeah, they did. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing good, Pee-wee. I was trying to get a hold of you on Friday to see if it was okay with you that we, move Chris Owens to right tackle and play Dalcourt at center, but I couldn't get a hold of you.
Jordan, we should tell you that Pee Wee is our habitual first caller every show forever, and he always talks about the offensive line. So you'll know what we're talking about.
When they play well, Pee Wee's responsible.
And when they
they play bad,
it's your fault.
That's my fault. I mean, that's how it goes.
Well, Coach, I was watching, and for the most part, like you said, they played very well, during the game. Had a few breakdowns here and there. I was just wondering what kind of corrections were made this week, whether it was communication or just what would it be for trying to fix those problems?
Well, I think the biggest problem was, fundamentally, we didn't always take good footwork. We didn't take good angles. We didn't help each other as well as we should. And I think that affected the running game in the second half a little bit. I think from a pass protection standpoint, look, people think that every time the quarterback gets pressure, it's the offensive line's fault. Sometimes, it's you have a protection plan and a protection scheme. And, Jordan knows that people get gnawed. They got stand-up people, 3-3 stack, this and that and all that. So you're always trying to get the protection right. All right, so whether the line has the 4 down and the mic, or the 5 guys on the line, and then the back has scanning, whatever it is, or you're going to slide the protection one way or the other because the defense looks overloaded. So we made a couple errors on that, and they got us a couple times, and we also threw an RPO once that Bryce got the sack fumble on. That was an RPO. That was not. And, we have a way to make a go call on that where the back aborts the fake and blocks the star coming off the head of the slot. And we didn't do it. So we got blowed up and, we got a sack fumble. So I'm only explaining that because I'm not taking up for the offensive line, but I'm just saying that sometimes what appears to be, wow, what did the offensive line do that time? Well, maybe they did it right and we weren't protected. Another time we slid the protection the wrong way and the back was hot and they peeled the back, so now you got nowhere to throw the ball. So there's a lot of things that happen schematically that sometimes impacts how you handle stuff. But when we got it right, all right, when we got the protection right, the offensive line did a pretty good job, and that's why we made some explosive plays in the game and had time to throw the ball. And Bryce does a nice job of buying time in the pocket as well, so he's very instinctive at doing that. So it's I just think that to answer your question, fundamentally, we didn't always play with the right footwork. We didn't help each other. I think those are things that players will learn from and get better at.
Coach, our first question tonight from the Nick Saban Show blog on AL.com. Drew up in Madison, Alabama says, Coach, I was excited with the play of our linebackers Saturday, and really overall the defense played well. He was curious whether there are any young defensive players that really impressed you against Miami.
Well, I think that, Braswell and Dallas Turner are going to be 2 guys that we have a lot of high hopes for, that we think are really good young players that are now going to get a greater opportunity to play because of Chris Allen, losing Chris Allen. That was a huge loss. With Chris Allen and Will on the edges and the 2 inside backers, we got Christian Harris and Henry. We had 4 really, really good linebackers. And so losing Chris was a real blow, from that standpoint. But I think these other guys have a chance to develop into being pretty good players, and they'll get more opportunity right, now to do that. So, but the young guys, Kool-Aid, I think, who will probably get some opportunity to play in this game this week, has a chance to be, a pretty good player in the secondary. Mm-hmm. I think we have some other guys, but it all depends on development. Young players want to focus on outcomes. They all want to know, where am I at on the depth chart? How much am I going to play? What's my role going to be on the team? Rather than focusing on what they got to do to become play winning football at their position. And if they would focus more on that, it would enhance their development. So I think that's the real key to some of these young guys. I do think we have some young guys on offense, too, that really could be impactful and help the team, and we got to get those guys going in the right direction.
Coach, we have a young lady over here to our left with a question for you. Good evening, ma'am.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. So we've talked about Miami. Now we focus on Mercer. What are some concerns or things you're focusing on this week regarding Mercer?
Right. Well, Mercer's offense is kind of semi-wishbone, semi-spread, maybe a little bit like Georgia Tech's offense. When Paul Johnson was the coach there the last, probably 8 or 9 years, however long it's been. So it's really, really completely different than anything our players play against on a day-to-day basis or anything that they've practiced, up until this point. So, these kind of games with these sort of, I'm going to call them little different offenses, really make you go back and play something completely different than you've played all year long that has no real carryover for what you're going to do the rest of the year. So that becomes very challenging for the players. And this has been a very challenging week for our defensive players. None of the carryover, none of the coverages, none of the things that we typically do, are we doing. So it's all new adjustments. So the biggest concern is can we execute those things correctly? And when they do run option elements, we'll be able to have the discipline defensively so that everybody does exactly what they're supposed to do. And, this team had 798 yards of total offense last week against the team that they played. All right, so they're a capable team. They've got lots of starters back from last year's team and all that. But so that's the biggest concern. Defensively, they're more, conventional, I'll call it, in terms of what they do on defense. So that's not that much different for our offense. But these guys play hard, and, our players are going to have to, come out and play. And it's a great opportunity for these guys to have an opportunity to play somebody like Alabama. So I'm sure they'll really want to play well, and our players will have to change the way they think.
And on their level last year, they beat 3 nationally ranked teams in the season. So you're right, they're not a bad ball club at all.
And they got a lot of players back. They're very experienced.
Yeah. Jordan, jump on in, sir.
Speaking of development, I'm going to jump back to the quarterback position. I was just thinking, I was in an NFL locker room, sitting in an NFL quarterback room, and our coach said, you know what? I could go find 5 guys on the street that can throw it further than all of you. And he was just kind of downplaying that the physical aspect of the game isn't everything. And the way that recently you've hit on Mac and Jalen and Tua and now Bryce seemingly blossoming into someone that could be a really, really big-time player in this conference and nationally, they're all physically a little different in a way. So when you're recruiting and developing, especially the quarterback position, what's the trait that's the non-negotiable when you're looking at a high school kid that you get to know? You're like, this, aside from yes being physically gifted, something like this can make this guy be really special.
Well, to me, the thing that's important is judgment, which takes ability to process quickly, get rid of the ball accurately. Those two things, to me, are very, very important to being a good quarterback. Not all the physical attributes, how fast you run, how strong your arm is, because you can be able to be a great runner and you can have a great arm, but if you can't process and you can't make quick decisions and throw the ball to the right guy at the right time with the right touch and accuracy, then you're always going to struggle as a passer. And all of the guys that you mentioned, did that very well. Jalen probably, because he was such a good athlete and a good runner coming out of high school, that was the thing that he had to really develop in.
Right.
Was to do that, be able to read coverage, process, where do I go with the ball, and you got to do it quickly. The time you get the ball until you throw it, it's like 3 seconds, so it's not like you got all day to figure it out. And, Bryce does that really, really well, really well. He's got a great feel for it. And he's accurate with the ball. So those things, I think, are going to be to his benefit as he develops and continues to get more experience.
Gentlemen, we're going to take a break right here, and then we'll come right back. More of our conversation with the coach and with our special media guest, Jordan Rogers from the SEC Network. You're listening to Hey Coach on the Nick Saban Show. Welcome back to the Nick Saban Show. This segment of the show sponsored by Coke Zero Sugar. New look, improved taste, new Coke Zero Sugar. I don't know football like you, Coach, but I loved watching Cameron Latu and picking up a couple of TDs on Saturday.
You know, I actually thought of you, when he scored a touchdown.
Did you?
Because you're so into these tight ends, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you always have been. Like you want the tight end to catch a lot of balls. I love Jerry Jeudy. I love Williams. I love Mechie. I love Smitty.
Yeah.
But you're always concerned about the tight end.
What you got against tight ends?
I don't have anything against tight ends.
That goes all the way back to 92. When
it's like speed kills, on the highway and on the football field. And he always wants the tight end. Yeah. I mean, if Kendall Randolph, who plays tight end at 290 pounds, if he caught a pass, I bet you would be like
I'd probably jump out of the booth.
That's right.
Not quite as sexy, but easily as satisfying. You know what I mean?
That goes back to 92 when Gene Stallings was the head coach, and he and I talked one night on the show about what's it going to take. I said, is it going to take an act of God for you to throw to the tight end? And and he gave me an answer very similar to yours.
But I do agree with you and you've heard me say this before. If you have a really good tight end, that's probably the best mismatch player that you can have on your team, because the people who end up covering the tight end most of the time are not the best cover people on defense. Mm-hmm. And so, therefore, if you have a mismatch player at that position, he can really create a lot of havoc for you. Like the guy at Florida last year, Pitts.
Yeah, goodness.
Man, I'm telling you. I mean,
defensive
back couldn't cover the guy.
Yeah.
And the linebacker couldn't cover the guy because the defensive back because of his size. The linebacker because the guy was so athletic and fast.
Sure.
I mean, but you're talking about, impossible situation, when you have a mismatched player like that. So, and we've had some good ones here. Irv was really good. O.J. Howard was really good. And, I think we got some guys on our team now that can be pretty good. But, and we'll see how they develop throughout the course of the year.
We will. Jump on in.
I'm hearing from the people on the side, we've met your quota about talking about tight ends, so we can move on from that. Speaking of speed, two guys here. How does a guy like Jameson Williams get lost in the mix at Ohio State with that type of talent, speed? And another guy watching back last week that I'm really excited about how he's going to evolve in this offense and how you're going to use him is JoJo Earle. So tell me a little bit about those two guys and where JoJo's maybe ceiling is.
You can tell this guy was a quarterback. Mm-hmm. He picked the two guys out that can make big plays and make him look good and be SEC Player of the Week.
I wish I had a couple of guys like that.
Yeah. No, but you're right. I don't know how J-Bo got. We looked for a receiver, and we looked at everybody in the portal, and he started and played against us last year in the national championship game, and we had a lot of respect for him from that standpoint. And then when he was in the portal and we looked at all the players, we said, no doubt, this is the best guy out there. Let's try to get him. And we didn't have much room because of the recruiting year that we had.
Right.
We could only take a guy or two. So he and Henry have, both been really positive additions. I don't know what the situation was at Ohio State. I don't know if he didn't think that because of the receivers they have there, even though he was a starter a year ago, that maybe he wouldn't, get as many opportunities. I never really asked him about it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I just said, hey, if you want to come here, we'd love to have you and create a lot of opportunities for you and kind of go from there. And, JoJo Earle is just a freshman, little number 10, but
he can go.
I think this guy is special. He can be special. He's also a really good returner. And we're trying to get him to be a little bit more confident, back there, commanding, especially in punt return, which is what he'd really be good at. He's a little Waddle-like, when it comes to that. So, you picked out two good ones, I can tell you that.
You sure did. Hey, folks, if you want to join the conversation, 877-202-BAMA.
I like to ask a question because, this quarterback thing, and I really kind of respect Jordan, having played the position and played against them. But what would you say is your things that are most important about a quarterback other than the things that I said when you asked me the question?
Yeah, I think because I only got to play 2 years in the SEC, from my first to second year, the biggest jump I had, and when I think a quarterback, everyone likes to say the game slows down. For me, the game slowed down when the protection and the guys in front of me were off of my checklist. So the more I mastered and knew every aspect of where my stress was, where I was protected, backside or front, then that was off my plate. Then it was just background noise to me. And then that's when the game really, truly did slow down. So quarterbacks, for me, you got to win the play before the play.
Right.
And the guys that do that, the guys that put either their team in the best situation and or themselves in the best situation to be successful before the ball ever snaps, to me, that's 75% of the battle. Then the physical takes over, and you're just reacting. And then the second, for me, being a California quarterback who I never took a shotgun snap until junior college, and I think I maybe took 2 or 3 a game, so I was under center. Footwork, to me, is everything. Absolutely everything. The ability to generate velocity off platform, the ability to stay balanced as you're moving and guiding through the pocket. Something I think Bryce, and I caught with him after the practice in the hall, and he said, "Who's a quarterback you look up to?" And I thought I knew where he was going, and he said, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers." I said, "I know. I could flip on the tape, and I could just see the way your lower body works, the way your feet move, the way you position yourself in certain throws allows you to do 2 things. Generate velocity on throws where you don't have your weight into a throw, where you have something in your face, and accuracy." And
Right.
those
which
2 things.
Which is the number one thing to
Yeah.
me. And
it starts with the feet to me.
and if quarterbacks don't have good footwork, they can't have good accuracy. Just like a baseball pitcher, if he doesn't have the rhythm, he's not going to throw strikes.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You got to have good footwork and have really good balance and body control to have a chance to be accurate with
And
the
what
ball.
I love about Bryce, I always say, you got to be able to play within a phone booth, right? You're not as much a pitcher throwing a fastball, like striding and reaching, as much as you are staying in a compact area, and how much velocity can you generate while not taking up space towards the line of scrimmage. And some of those protection issues we saw last week, there was some heat in his face at times,
Right.
but he did such a good job of not stepping into it, but almost falling back a little bit, but still generating a ton of velocity on the ball. And that just comes back to being an athlete, comes back to how good he is with his feet. So I thought it was fun to watch. And to me, I loved it because that's the 2 things that were so important to me, what he does pre-snap and him
Right.
telling what OB wants him to do, and what he was able to do, accuracy and with his base post-snap.
Right. Well, I just wanted to ask that question because we're trying to educate you on the quarterback
Exactly.
play,
Yes,
so
I
we
need
can
that.
get off the damn tight end.
You got it. Anything you want to teach me, Coach, I'm open to learning. I sure am.
So we can expand the horizon a little bit.
There you go. Todd is in Birmingham. He's on the phone joining us. Todd, bail me out here, sir.
Hey guys, by the way, yeah, I'm all for tight end. Not throwing to them, but the way they block. But hey, Coach, years ago I was a head football coach in high school, and one of the things that frustrated me the most was our defensive guys communicating with each other during a game. Now, granted, y'all played well, but kind of a twofold question. How do you think your DBs communicated with each other, as well as just in general the whole defense?
Well, I thought we made less mental errors in the game this past game than what was typically, the problem the first half of the season last year. Much more experience on the field in terms of, 8 starters and Henry, who was a starter in the same system for several years. More experience in the secondary. And I do think some of the things Miami did, we were not prepared for. Players had to make adjustment and do things on principle, which they were able to do. And, of course, that comes from experience as well. So the communication was better. The mental errors were way down. And I think that, that's probably why we played a little better. I just think the problem in the second half was we didn't get off the field on 3rd down. We got to disguise things better. We got to do a little better job of covering, anticipating what's going to happen. We didn't get quite as good a pressure on the quarterback. So, all those things to me are things that we can improve on.
Todd, thank you for your call. Let's stay with the phones and go to Haleyville, Alabama. JB, you're next. Welcome in.
Hey, Mr. Go, how you doing?
I am well, sir. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Hey, Coach, I just want to ask you a question. My mom, Alice Brooks, turned 80 years old last week and made it to see her granddaughter in the color guard band at our high school here in Haleyville. Can we count on you being here at Alabama until you're 80 years old?
Well, I'm first of all, congratulations to you and happy birthday to your mother. I think that's wonderful. You know, I think my mom is 89 and living in Birmingham. So we know how much respect and appreciation that, you know, we all should have for the elderly and all the lessons that we learned and things that they've done for us that have helped us become, you know, better people and been more successful. So I can really understand, you know, why you have great love and passion for the relationship you have with folks in your family.
And the coach will be here until he feels he can't contribute any longer. And that, I believe, is going to be quite a while yet, if I may speak on your behalf. Hey, you mentioned Henry To'o. Here's a guy who led Tennessee in tackles the last couple of years, would have been Bama's #1 tackler this past weekend had he not gone out early. What a contributor. I mean, it's fun watching him. And I guess, how did he do calling the plays when he was in?
Oh, great. You know, Henry's a really good communicator. He's a really smart guy. He's one of those guys that, you know, when we talk about more preparation, do more to prepare for the game, make sure you understand. You know, he's got a great sense of pride about him, and a sense of pride as a signal caller, so he don't want to mess up for everybody else. So, you know, he spends a lot of time with Pete. I think he has a really good understanding of, and he's a good communicator, and I think he's really made all the other players in the front seven play better because they have a lot of confidence in the call. And I think people, you know, really, really underestimate the importance of having a signal caller on defense who is confident and in command. It's very much like a quarterback on offense. You know, you got to set the front. You got to call where we running the stunts, and sometimes stunts are run, you know, in multiple different places based on receiver location, running back location, where the three-man blocking surface is. I mean, there's all kind of different ways that you can set things up, and having smart guys that can figure that out and be very decisive in making those calls, you know, is very helpful. And even if they make the wrong call and it's decisive and everybody plays it correctly, it's really not wrong. All right, so, you know, and Henry's done a really, really good job of that, and he's a very instinctive player, good tackler, and, you know, he was the leading tackler in the last game.
Yep, he is a good one. You're listening to The Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. For auto, home, and life insurance, call Alpha. We're back in a moment. Welcome back to The Nick Saban Show. Coach, directly out here in front of us, we have a gentleman with a question for you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Gold. My question is for Coach Saban.
Yes, sir.
Looking at your current running backs that you have, how are you looking at their development going forward, looking at Mercer and beyond?
Well, I like all four running backs that we have right now. Kamar Wheaton got injured, in practice, and he was a really good young player that people don't know about yet that was a freshman. But B-Rob played really well in the game, was very physical, hard to tackle, trying to work on his avoid a little bit so maybe he can make a miss in space a little better. But I thought he played really well in the game. Jace McClellan is a really good player, 21, played well in the game. Roy Dell is, an up-and-coming guy. First time he ran the ball, he fumbled it. He's fumbled twice. Fumbled once last year. He carries the ball in his belly, like this, like this. And when you get hit, that's when you fumble. And we worked on that really hard with him. And first time he carried the ball, so he came out. Trey Sanders went in, and Trey did really well. So I'm encouraged by all those guys. And we don't have anybody behind them because Kamar Wheaton got hurt, and he was a real speedster and a really guy that could have probably been helpful to us this year as well. So that's a good group, and they'll all get to play. We'll play them all as much as we can because we have confidence in all 4 guys.
And I was so thrilled with Trey. I mean, coming back from where he was to have a great game the other day, that was wonderful to see.
Yeah, well, I mentioned that after the press conference because that was really something heartfelt for me.
Yeah.
Was, people don't really realize what this guy's been through. He had Liz Frank a year ago. He missed the whole season. Got it in fall camp, was going to play, was a good player, was, going to be the second or third guy and have a lot of playing time. So that's a tough injury. That's 4 months. It's a tough rehab. All right, so then he gets back and he's, starting to come along and, goes home and gets T-boned when his brother's driving a car and breaks his hip and all that. And that was like an 8-month ordeal, to get him back to where he could play. And nobody knows how much this guy went through and what a difficult rehab to get back to where he is right now, and really proud of him for all he's done. And it was really good to see him score a touchdown, have some positive plays, to feel good about all he's put into it and get something positive out of it.
It was great to see. Well, Coach, the clock on the wall says it is time for your final word, presented each week by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Well, the first thing I'd like to do that we didn't get to talk about was, Linda and I sent 70 text messages today. 70.
Okay.
70 guys, former Alabama players on NFL rosters at some level. And, I'm really pleased and happy for all those guys, but I'm also thankful for all they did to help the Alabama program be all that it can be, and I know the fans appreciate that as well. And you take great interest on seeing the guys play on Sunday, which I don't get the opportunity to do very often, but really want to thank all those guys and wish them well, in their seasons, because they've done a great job and been great ambassadors for the University of Alabama. It's going to be great to play at home this week. It's going to be great to play in Bryant-Denny Stadium. It seems like I can't even remember the last time we played there when we have fans, because last year was such an abnormality.
Sure.
So we're certainly looking forward to that. I hope it's a great day. I think that, energy and enthusiasm is always something that encourages players in a positive way. And I don't care who we're playing. I think that's really, really important. And I talked a lot about maintaining intensity. And I think great energy and enthusiasm in the crowd is certainly something that helps players do that. Doesn't matter who we're playing, come out and support our guys. And I think the number one challenge for us is to be able to sustain that kind of intensity so that we can take the next step and improve as a team.
Well, listen, we have a lot to look forward to this weekend. It's great to have you on board, and great to have Jordan alongside of us here this evening.
Yeah, appreciate him.
Appreciate you guys letting me sit here.
Always
Talk
a
about tight
pleasure.
ends.
Been good. Rather sit by you here than play against you when you were at Vanderbilt.
I hear. Hey, quickly, do you like doing the games better than the studio
I love
setting?
the games.
Do
I
ya?
love the games because I get to prep like I was a player. I watch it. I probably watch more film, as a booth analyst, and I get to prep for the unknown. Right? I think I know what's going to happen. I get to react to it as close as I'm ever going to get again to being in a game.
I hear you. Well, listen, great to have you here. Thank you so
Appreciate
much,
it.
Coach. Thank you so much. Coach Nick Saban, ladies and gentlemen, and Jordan Rogers from the SEC Network.